into external rotation into press. So I'm using a bench setup at a gym. If you have access to like a high-low table or some sort of like training table, that works really well because you have a bigger surface to hang on or to lay on, excuse me, and you can get a little bit more stable, but the bench works just fine. So when we get onto the bench, if I have longer legs, I'm able to kind of hang my leg off the edge and have my knee on the ground. But as you saw in the intro part of the video, I kicked my leg out to the side because most people, you're gonna feel like you're falling off the bench if you try to get your knee on the ground. And the reason we're bringing our foot out to the side is we're trying to bring ourselves into more hip flexion to lock up our low back so we're not compensating and cheating with arching our low back. Now, if this is really uncomfortable, just scoot your foot back. If it bothers you to have your leg off to the side, you can have both legs on the bench, but just be really mindful that you're not arching your back while you're performing the motion. So when I get set up here, I'm gonna turn my arm, or my head, excuse me, toward the working side. And this arm, the left, the one that's being worked, we're gonna start in the bottom position or my hand on the ground. I'm going to row, and when I row, my elbow is relatively wide. I don't want it to be in close to my body, because when I go to rotate and press, it'll kind of change the mechanics. So I like to cue that when I row, my elbow is roughly in line with my shoulder. And the way the camera is oriented, you can kind of see that my elbow is not further back. That would be below my shoulder or above my shoulder. It's in line with my shoulder. I'm going to rotate into external rotation as much as I can, trying to get my forearm at least parallel with the ground or above. And then I'm going to press all the way up, come back to that position, rotate down, back to the bottom. That would be an example of 1 rep. So row, external rotation, press, back to the bottom. Notice that the only thing that's moving is my shoulder. I'm not compensating through my low back, and I'm keeping my head turned toward that working side. The reason we turn the head is it kind of tensions the upper trap, makes it a little bit harder to be able to compensate and do a bunch of shrugging. And that's the other piece that I wanted to touch on is the shrug. So it's normal to get elevation of the shoulder blade when you go into an overhead position. Just be mindful that when you go to do the row, when I'm on the bench, that when I row, I'm not shrugging my shoulder toward my chin when I row. I want my shoulder to be in a neutral position. So I'm not trying to depress my shoulder and I'm not shrugging it. I'm just kind of in the middle. Row, rotate, press, return to the starting position.